Welcome back to the Birch Forest broadcast. This is Bill, and today I'm going to be talking about how to thwart a strong returner. And I'll tell you what, somebody who can return serve really well, that is my Achilles heel. So I used to love to serve and volley a lot, and if I had to volley, a lot, make that first volley every time it seemed that was a lot of pressure for me. So that was my least favorite person to play with somebody who's a really great returner in some regard. So now let's break it down. There are different kinds of great returners. So let's take Leighton Hewitt. All right, Leighton Hewitt was one of the greatest returners of all time. And I would call him a high percentage returner. And I believe at his height, he was making 80% or more of his returns in play. So that's pretty astounding. So that's the first thing to consider is that even Leighton Hewitt would miss 1 out of 5. So when you're thinking about statistics, always flip it around the other way. Subtract from 100 and think about, okay, so he would miss 1 in 5. Now, Andre Agassi might not have had the same percentage, but he might have been under 80%, but he's at what I would call a powerful returner. So that ball is going to come back with a strong shot. Now, sometimes what people say is, oh, the ball was going faster on the return than it was on the serve, and that's actually just not true. Because the ball slows down significantly from the serve to the bounce, even before it hits the ground. And then when it hits the ground, that's its most significant speed loss. And then it loses even more speed because of the air pressure, the continuing air pressure. One thing to keep in mind is that the fuzz on the ball really does slow the ball down. Here's a little homework assignment. Go on YouTube and look up college players play with a tennis ball with no fuzz. Because they tried this out, and it's really interesting. You just can't play. The ball's too fast. Then there's the third kind of returner, which is more the quick angle making returner. So, both Hewitt and Agassi both qualified in that way. They both had that aspect as well. But some people that you face don't have every quality of a great returner. So some of them, if you are serving at their body, that's going to, that's one thing. And if you go out wide and then they get out there and they beat you with an angled shot, then that can make you feel miserable. Now, we're going to break down how to deal with each kind of returner and give you some options to get the percentages more on your side. So if you're facing somebody who makes almost all their returns and they're over 80%, then you want to get them under 80% because you can gain a couple of more points that way. Right. So here's what you need to know. The player that makes a high percentage of returns but doesn't necessarily go for a lot, it might not be about making them miss so much because their timing is so good and they're taking such a conservative approach. They're not going for a lot. But what you can do is you can try to induce them to make a shorter return. All right. Now, so definitely with a player who is very good at making a high percentage of them, what you want to do is you want to find out which return is their lowest percentage return. So, a lot of times with a player, a lot of times if you go at their body and they have to get out of the way of it, that's one of the better ones. And it's not an underused serve. What you might find is that players like that are so keen to be defensive that if you try to go towards the corners, then they actually like those more. And what they do is they get you to miss serves by going for too much. So, another thing to consider is that you should serve to their backhand because on average, backhands travel more slowly than forehands. So even if they're still making a higher percentage, you can get a slower ball back and you can probe them. So you have the 4 different locations on the court that you can hit to. And there will be a diagram in the book coming up for tennis strategy 201 and 301. And take a look at Success Airlines on Clubhouse. It's very interesting. So if you need a referral to Clubhouse, just reach out. So you've got the wide serve, which is a little bit short. You have the corner serve. You have the body serve right in the middle of the box. And then you have the tee serve. So try those out and figure out, okay, maybe they don't like the corner one because they don't like to have to move sideways that much. Maybe they don't like the corner one, but they're okay with the wide one because they get to move diagonally forward more. You have to probe that. You've got to find out what's going to work. But in general, I would say with that kind of player, do 2 things. Go at their body, see what happens. Go to their backhand, see what happens. And give them a pretty strong diet of those. Now, with the power player, so you're playing with somebody and they hit the ball, pretty hard. Their timing is going to require more timing. And so the number one thing that I like to do against a power player is change the speeds of my serve. So hit it a little faster and a little slower. And then what you can do is you can actually get them to get early on some balls when you take a little bit of speed off the ball and then they hit balls in the net. And then you come with a little bit more and then they overpower the ball and you can get them to hit a few more balls long. So intentionally change your spins and your speeds a little bit to keep the ball out of their strike zone. And that's probably the most important thing that you want to do with the power player is figure out where's their wheelhouse. So if you happen to hit a serve and they absolutely crush it, take note of that. And generally, it's going to be a ball that they don't have to move a lot for. But sometimes those people who are really strong on their returns, if you hit a ball at their body, they're really good at stepping out of the way and rotating on the shot. I've seen that a lot. So you have to be careful with the body ball and you have to be careful with the corner ball because that can be right in their wheelhouse. And sometimes those players really like to come forward. So the wide ball, they come forward and they crush it. So you have to probe, again, it wouldn't be unwise to go to their backhand a little bit more. If they're really strong returner on both sides, maybe they don't have a weakness there. And you have to understand that, right? So like a Jimmy Connors was stronger on his backhand return than he was on his forehand return. Still one of the best returners, but people didn't really want to serve to Jimmy's backhand. So, for the power player, just to summarize, find out where their wheelhouse is because you need to avoid that. And change speeds and spins to throw off their timing. And then again, come back to which locations work the best for you. And then you have the player who really loves to stretch out, and they might not be good at a ball at their body, but they're really great when they're leaning and stretching and they have the flipper out. And if you go out wide, you're asking for it because you're going to get a really short angle in front of you on the other side. If you get you go down the line, they're slicing it back and they're going to float that ball back. They might not make it too, approachable. So they got a nice flipper shot, so to speak. So then, if the mistake you might make is try to get too fine and try to hit lines to try to get it past them. But really probably what you want to do is you want to come back to, keeping the ball in on them. And this is where, especially with people who have two-handed backhands, I like to hit a slice that curves into them, because then it handcuffs them and they don't get to stretch out for their shot. So you can really mitigate the amount of power that they can get. You can also take away their ability to make angles. And when you slice a ball into somebody's two-handed backhand, sometimes you get a ball that just kind of squirts out and it's a weak reply, and then you're going to have a ball that you can really do something with. So you can get some short balls out of that. With that kind of player who really likes to reach out, you probably don't want to hit your slice serve very much. But you probably want to throw it in there a little bit to keep them honest. But this is where maybe a kick serve at their body and then some flat serves at their body, and you're trying to get them in here. You want to go and hit it inside of that 6 feet window where they're going to have to move away from the shot. And then that can set something up, because if you get them trained to have to not move and to kind of pull back, pull inward for the shots, then after a few of those, then you might make them hesitate. You might have them caged up in the middle. Then you can start going wide and see if you make an effect there. And then if you can do that, then that's going to be kind of a crushing blow to them. So that can be a really good advantage for you if you can get them really frustrated, caged in, not able to extend. And then all of a sudden, then you come with a bomb to the corner and they're flat-footed because they've been under attack at their body so much. All right, and then there's the player who pretty much chips everything back. They just kind of poke it back. They just have really small back swings, and they might put a little bit of slice on there, and they're giving you almost no pace. Now, one thing that's kind of tricky about that is that you can't slice a slice very well. So when you have these players that are chipping the return often to you, then if you come in with a slice serve, then if that ball gets out of where they can really slice it well, and then if you change that spin a little bit so that the ball's a little bit unpredictable, and sometimes they're in here, sometimes they're there, and sometimes they're out there, you're going to find it very difficult to hit a really effective chip on you. So that's one of the secret sauces that way. And then another thing that you can do is you can hit hard and flat right at them, because they're going to have to get out of the way, and getting out of the way and also chipping is a little tough. But some people do it better than others. So anyway, there's that caveat. I know sometimes when I'm getting jammed on my backhand, if I just do a little abbreviated thing like that, I can still make some in, but it's not preferable. So here are a couple more things that you can do that's sort of general advice to work against almost anybody. And it's stuff people don't usually think about. One thing you can do is you can change the location from which you're serving. So, most people stand in the same place every time. They get, in singles, they get, as close to the line as they can and as close to the service center line as they can. And that's good, right? Because then your court coverage is going to be fine, right? But it's really amazing how the other player won't really account for it if you stand 2 feet further over or even 3 feet further over. And now the angle that your serve is coming in is just slightly different. It's enough to make a difference. And you can get, 1 or 2 percentage more returns that don't come back. You could get 1 or 2 more percentage points where you're getting a weak reply. And one of my favorite things is convincing somebody that they're having a bad day at the office, that they're like, what's wrong with my return today? How come and then they get frustrated and they think it's all about them, but it's me over there sort of sneakily moving around different parts, And one thing you'll see quite often, especially in the ad court, is people standing 3, 4, 5 feet over so that they can serve into the ad court and still get a forehand. So that's another thing to do, is you want to think about, so you can move around just for the sake of throwing them off, but you can also move as far over to the left as you are as a right-handed player to seek more forehands on that first ball, because that's a really big key indicator of success. So no matter who that returner is, if you can induce them to hit a ball to your forehand on your first shot, then that's a really great S+1 play for you. All right, so is there something I left out? I want to hear your thoughts. What are you thinking? Thank you, the one person who's watching live right now. Make sure to make a comment. I love the comments. I answer those the best I can. I'm gonna have to go onto LinkedIn and answer Sterling's quote in writing from yesterday. Spend your social digital currency. It only takes a moment and it makes a big difference. You're helping the algorithms, right? So press like, hit subscribe, scroll down into the description, and look at my books for a second. If you just click on one of my books, it's really amazing what that does for helping other people see it. So here's one favor I'm going to ask you right now. Go to a Google browser and put Tennis Strategy 101 Bill Patton in there and just search for the book and then click through to Amazon. It'll take you a minute, but this is something that I've been told is a really awesome SEO trick, because when there's a so-called organic search onto Amazon from Google, then that pairing goes way up. So anyway, if you'll do that, I'd appreciate it. You don't have to do anything I say, but thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Next time we'll talk probably about how to deal with somebody's big forehand. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.